Good afternoon, partners. This is Sherman Crancer, Senior Partner Channel Development Manager for the Western United States. I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. We have got a great program today. We actually have a very well-respected colleague in the house today as a special guest, and we'll get into that in just a second. But what we are covering is Synnex Compete. You know, when choosing a distributor, why choose Synnex? Now, for the people who are attending the show today, we also will be raffling off a sizable raffle prize at the end of the show. So make sure you stay tuned and you stay on for the full part of the program. So if we want to move on into the next part, which really is the agenda for today, is we want to make sure that you understand what you're going to be covering, or what we're going to be covering, and what you're going to learn. And one is, we always start with thought leadership, right? We always start with something that's going to help inspire you. We have our special guest, Paul Mashelin from Synnex, who specializes in Azure. We have Brainstorming with Justin Slagle. We have questions from Microsoft partners. Now, this is where you come in and make sure you open up the Q&A section and go ahead and put some questions in. Then we'll talk about Synnex and their unique offerings, as well as some of their very unique promotions. We'll have a call to action, and lastly, the summary. So let's move into the thought leadership portion of it. We always start this out. It's one of my favorite parts because I get a chance to express some of the things that I think is important. And I think the very first one is the KISS method. I don't know if anyone of you ever heard of the KISS method of sales and marketing and running your business. And I sure have. And there's a lot of different variations of this particular acronym, the KISS. And what I'd like to say is that I think the first thing to understand is, overcomplicating ideas is probably the fastest way to reduce profitability and optimize confusion. And that may seem like, weird. And who wrote that? Who quoted that? Well, that was me. I put that together. I should have put, go ahead, Sherman, put a reference to Sherman Crancer. But I really believe that, especially in this industry, I think a lot of us overcomplicate the idea of, selling Azure or selling Dynamics 365 or really selling anything, or overcomplicate the idea of marketing and sales, right? We like to sometimes overthink things. And in reality, it doesn't really help you to do that. It really doesn't, because you're being in a position that you're not going to be able to do a lot of business by doing that. We talked about this last week, and I think it was more about, it's not timing the business market, it's time in the business market. And that really comes down to keeping things simple, selling 1, 2, 3, or 4 different things, but actually getting out there and not overcomplicating the idea. The timing the business is where somebody comes in and says, well, okay, we need to have every single idea planned out. We need to know A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down to Z. But wait a minute, let's think about it some more. Let's put all these processes. Let's reverse engineer X, Y, Z. You just got to keep it simple. I'll tell you a story when I was a partner, and I had my own business for 2.5 years, and this is when I became an IT partner, right? Because I came to a bunch of these IAMCP meetings, and I was looking around, I was thinking, man, these partners in here are making some pretty big margins, and I realized it was 36, 42, 62% margins, and that's what I saw, and I thought, man, this is awesome. Well, how much did I know about IT? Well, pretty much like zero, right? I mean, absolute zero. But I decided, something, let me go ahead and investigate. And I spent about a week or two of studying, the basics of what an IT professional does. And I realized real quickly, hey, you could outsource everything. So let's not make it complicated. Sherman, there's no need to go get certifications right now. You know what you can do? You can hire some people who have the certifications, or hire or contract out your programs or your particular opportunities to those who know what they're doing. And then I utilized IAMCP members to actually implement. But the interesting thing, and the reason why I'm bringing up this story here, is within, about a month of being in practice, I was able to convince several very large influential organizations that I was the IT company that they should rely on, or I was the IT company that they should endorse out here in California. And if I would have overcomplicated it by going in and saying, okay, I need to learn everything there is about Azure, I need to learn everything there is about Office 365, I need to learn everything there is about SharePoint, I need to learn everything there is about building a business, I may be still there thinking about it right now, but what did I do? I kept it simple. And I think this is the better word to use it. I kept it simple, superstar. Okay. I think there's another acronym or another word we could use, but it really is, hey, just keep it simple. Stop talking and thinking and wondering what's going to happen. It's never too late to start your business and doing business right now. Sometimes you have to just jump into the fire, even though the fire is raging and you think there's no way I'm going to get out of it. Sometimes you just got to get in and you find out that, really it's not that hot and you can actually survive. Lastly, I'm going to leave you with this. We always talk about this. Leaders do what they talk about, right? But dreamers talk about what they're going to do. So I want you to leave you with this, and I want you to just go ahead and do it. Do something remarkable this week. Do something different. Email me what you've done. I'll be happy to share it, at a later conference. All right, so let's go ahead and just do a quick introduction here. You know who I am, so I don't have to say this, but I want to introduce Paul Mashlin from Synnex. And Paul, could you help us understand or give us a little background of who you are and what you do for Synnex?
Sure. Sherman, thanks for having me on your show today. My name is Paul Mashlin, and I am the Azure sales lead at Synnex for the U.S. And my background, I've been with Synnex. I just turned over 7 years there. I started out on the Microsoft team as a TPAM, grew into business development, and I've done a few other things around cloud with software at Synnex, and I've been back on the Microsoft team now for a couple years. And my role centers around partner enablement, and this is really what I spend my day in, day out, talking to partners about Azure, how to make a profitable business out of it, and some things you want to watch for.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I think for the group here, we're very lucky, as Paul really understands Azure, and we're really kind of going to get into that, or kind of how our partners are really going to utilize this. So with no further introduction, what I'd like to do is get into our next section, which is brainstorming with Justin Slagle. Justin, do you mind go ahead and taking this over?
Sure. Thanks, Sherman. So I think we had a pretty energetic week last week. For those of you who we're close with, we probably let you know that Cindy Bates had our all hands meeting. We get together every 6 months or so. And it was really energetic. I mean, to see some of the things we did, we had some great team building exercises. And for the first time ever, we actually had partners come in and actually work on an exercise with us. It was just fantastic. And there were a lot of things that came from that. And I think over the next couple of episodes, maybe we'll share some of those things. And as some of the things start to land that we were discussing, some simple things I'll just briefly tell you guys to be looking for. We do have a very significant EMS promo that's going in market. We have a Windows 10. We have some marketing funds that are coming out for Windows 10 Enterprise. So partners, if you're wanting to build a Windows 10 practice, start selling Windows 10 Enterprise into some of your accounts, not only do we have the free upgrade from Windows 7 or Windows 8 up to Windows 10 Pro to get into Enterprise, but we do have some marketing dollars that are going to become available. But I wanted to spend a few minutes today and actually talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart, and that is building a business and building your practice in partnership with some ISVs. So we have some ISVs who are going to be coming up to our partner briefing at the end of the month here in Southern California, and these are some ISV partners that I believe in. They can definitely help set yourselves apart whenever you're creating your own packages that you're going to market with. And it's not necessarily specific to Office 365 or Azure, but we can really start digging into some of these, and you can start seeing ways that you can build your practice all the way around. So if I look at a couple of them here, the first one I'll highlight is called MyCloudIT. So MyCloudIT is a fantastic ISV that we started working with very heavily about a year ago in SMB. And MyCloudIT, if you think of them as having literally an easy button for creating remote desktop or remote app. So it still uses your CSP tenant. They just do all the hard work of creating this remote desktop experience. So it takes you just a few minutes to go through their wizard and say, hey, this is the tenant that I want to set up, and then they do all the work for you. A few hours later, everything is set up for your customer. You make margin on both the MyCloud IT setup as well as in CSP for the Azure consumption. So it really is fantastic. And I hear a lot of partners who are saying, hey, I want to do more with remote app. This is a really easy way to get in. Another one that we'll have at the partner briefings is DocuSign. And I think a lot of you probably know of DocuSign because they are really the de facto standard when it comes to electronic signatures. Now, we have a partnership set up with DocuSign where you can resell a DocuSign service with Office 365. So this is an amazing way that you can separate yourself, especially if you're working with realtors, if you're working with maybe law firms or anybody who's doing any type of online signature. Why not partner with DocuSign and put it into your package when you're selling Office 365? Another one that we have is MaxCloud. So MaxCloud has a few unique offerings. So one of the things that we love about a couple more, BitTitan and Skykick, is they have some great tools to help you migrate email into Office 365. But what MaxCloud does is they actually have a service that if you say, hey, we've got this client, we need to do an email migration, they actually have a team of people who will deliver the migration service for you. So you send over, hey, I've got this customer, here's where they're at, this is what we need to do. They'll use the different services like Skykick, BitTitan, or even some of the Microsoft tools, whatever is best suited for that particular case, they'll do that for you. So it's a full team of people that you can leverage to take your customers into Office 365. But then above and beyond that, they'll help with the onboarding, and they'll also help with actually instructor-led training. So if you have customers who say, hey, we want to have an instructor-led training on Excel or Power BI or whatever the case may be, they'll actually deliver it. It's remotely led, instructor-led training. So a fantastic partner to work with. Team Fusion, who we're actually going to highlight next month here, or sorry, not next month, but next week in the brainstorming session. So Team Fusion actually has a white labeled solution where you can offer computer-based training to your customers. So if you go out and you deploy Office 365 to a customer and they say, hey, our users actually want to do training on their own, well, they give you a portal where essentially you can offer any type of Office 365 training to the users. And they go through, they can search for whatever they want. You can get reporting, pull down reporting and say, hey, after 2 months of this, we're looking at some reports and we see that a lot of people are really interested in pivot tables, or a lot of people are interested in Power BI, or a lot of people are interested in OneDrive. You can do computer-based training, add some additional services for yourself, but truly an absolutely phenomenal product. Another one is not necessarily an ISV, but another way that you can make some money is really understanding some of the capital that's available to you. So one of the partners that we'll have at the partner briefings is Ascentium Capital. So you may know of Ascentium Capital as a finance or lease company, but what's great about what Ascentium Capital is bringing to market is they actually have a new methodology, because so much business is moving into the cloud and we don't have necessarily the hardware that we can use as collateral. They figured out a way that they can actually use your managed services as a collateral type so that they can continue to finance your deals, whether it's Office 365, Azure, your managed services. And it's not to say that you always have to have financing, but what happens a lot of times is if you have this recurring revenue, it's great to have the recurring revenue, but every now and then you might need a little bit of a extra boost to maybe do a specific project around the office, or you're trying to build out a practice and you need $50,000 or $100,000 up front. Well, you can take your subscription service that you would normally get with Office 365 or Azure or whatever the case may be, and finance that over maybe a 2 or 3 year term. The customer's still paying on a month-to-month basis, but you actually get paid up front. So really interesting way to think about it. Plantronics is another a great partner that we've had for several years. If you're selling any type of a Skype solution, it's really about the endpoint that the customers are using that allows them to have that great experience with Skype. So we want to make sure that we have the best quality endpoints in their hands. So when they're talking either on a PSTN conferencing call, or if they're using Skype as their primary phone system, you want to make sure you have a great speaker system. If it's like a speaker puck for a conference room, a headset, whether it's over the ear, over the shoulder, over the head, or over the ear. But fantastic devices from Plantronics. So that's another way that you can bundle those into your packages. Armor is a great new partner that we've been starting to work with in SMB, and Armor is about protecting customers' data inside of Azure. So Microsoft's going to make sure that Azure is protected. But the data that's inside of Azure is really at the customers. It's protected at the stance that they take. So you can look through some different white papers on exactly how Microsoft protects Azure. We're going to try to do everything we can to keep all the bad guys out. But if something happens and maybe a password or something is given out and somebody is able to access the account, how do you make sure that all the data and everything inside of Azure is protected? So that's where Armor comes in. So they're going to talk to us at the partner briefings a little bit about that. Another migration story with AvePoint. So AvePoint does migration services for SharePoint and Azure and so forth. And really, again, another easy button for if you have customers, they want to pull data from on-premises into the cloud. AvePoint is another great solution. But let's say you're building a Azure practice and you don't necessarily have the talent on the bench. We have a service through a company called NetEnrich. So NetEnrich will allow you to extend your capabilities and start building an Azure practice. And then as you start building the Azure practice, you can start saying, okay, we've now done this enough times to where we can go out and we can feel comfortable in hiring an Azure engineer. So it's a great way for what we're seeing as startup partners into the Azure business to say, hey, I don't want to spend a lot of money, but this is a great way that you can get into Azure and then you can start building the practice after you have a few deals. And then last but not least, a partner that we have that has about in the last 6 months or so, we've done some amazing deals with. This is Concur. So if you think of Concur as an add-on for accounts payable, so you'll often hear of things like travel sites. Like at Microsoft, we use Concur for our travel. We also can use it for expense reporting. So maybe companies out there are having problems with their expense reports and they want to be able to take pictures with their phones. They don't want to have to turn in those types of receipts. We now have a partnership where you guys can actually go out and resell Concur with Office 365 to extend those capabilities. So I've spent just a few minutes and talked about 10 or 11 ISVs and other types of partners that can really help. But I encourage you guys to take a look. Talk to your partners and distributors like Synnex and Ingram and Tech Data and D&H. Ask them about the partners that they have, the additional portfolio that they can add in. Because not only can it make you more money, but it can also make your customers more sticky. And that's what we're all looking for, is how do we make it to where this is a nice, long, sustainable, recurring revenue for yourself. Sherman?
Great. Thanks, Justin. Hey, real quick before you go here, or not before you go, because you're part of the whole thing. So Manish asked, which solution was the one where training was delivered remotely?
So the training delivered remotely is MaxCloud. So if you want to do computer-based training, that's Team Fusion. If you want the actual instructor, they deliver it via Skype. That would be with MaxCloud.
Fantastic. And then, before we get into, we have one question actually for Paul here, and we can just ask him really quickly. This is for Synnex. Is there a plan to allow moving an Azure portal that is already in place?
I assume that question has to do with moving between various subscription types. And that is something that's getting a lot of attention today, and we're certainly happy to have a conversation with you about it. Kind of depends on what's being used in the environment today as to whether that can be easily moved or not. But I would certainly welcome a conversation for us to look at that each individual opportunity to figure out how easy or difficult it may be to move that.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. And this might be something that I can ask the group here. Jared Powell, who we all know, had a pretty good question in here, and he says, I've seen overcomplication go rampant. Microsoft CTO said something that resonated. It doesn't have to be perfect; it just has to be good. Doing nothing is death. How about some examples of complication that hurts you? Or any type of examples. I don't know if you guys want to chime in, but I know one example. I think the best way of thinking about that is when somebody thinks that they have to know everything there is about a technology before they can go sell it. I would say that's overcomplicating it. I think you need to understand the first 3, 4, 5 bullet points, the ideas. You have to have an understanding of the technology and how it works and how it helps. But you don't need to know everything there is about it. You don't need to know everything there is in Azure and how to configure every little component just in case. No, you just have to know the basics of it. Team, do you guys have any other thoughts of things that might be overcomplicated?
I do have a couple thoughts on that. Is today when folks look at what can I do in Azure, If we think back to Office 365, you know, everything was a plan. It was pretty simple. It was all baked for you. When it comes to Azure, that's not necessarily the case. And people say, what can I do in Azure? Well, really, you can do anything, but that's not the conversation we should start with. Let's talk about, what do you do today for your customers? What have you done historically? And how can we do that in Azure? And I would say the other important thing to know there is that you're not necessarily going to know everything, how everything works from end to end, from beginning to end when you go to do it. But know that you've got a partner like Synnex that you can call and discuss what's the best way to go about designing this so that we have a profitable implementation and it, you know, shows off well for the customer.
I'll add, Sherman, that I think a lot of times when we think about going vertical, we see a lot of partners try to overcomplicate it. And I think we have to hear from customers to make sure that we have a perfected offer. Nobody's ever going to come out with the perfect offering without getting the feedback from the customer. Yep. So you've got to put something out there, like Sherry was saying. And in an instance of like going vertical, well, we can put together a package, but once you start hearing from customers that, hey, it's really missing this piece, well, we can start adding to it. So just create something simple, create that go-to-market offer, put it in market, and get the feedback, and then make some changes.
Yeah, sometimes breaking something is okay. I mean, I think you go out there, you try it. You know, when I started my IT business, I didn't use my basic customers in my carrier solutions business or my fiber business. I went for new ones because I knew that I might make mistakes, and I went for the smaller ones. I knew I might make some mistakes. That's okay. You know, as long as you're upfront about, you know, your mistakes, and you do your best to work on them, and then you're also honest about saying, hey, I can't help you anymore. Let me get somebody in here. If you do that, it's not like your reputation is going to be hurt, right? It's just you're open and forthwith. All right, so let's get into a couple other things. We've got a lot of questions start coming in, and I love them. I want you to keep pouring them in when we get to this next part. But first of all, I want to give this back to Paul here. We have all heard of this term cloud solve, okay, but without an E. I know I put an E there because you probably are confused. A lot of you probably thinking, oh, why can't I find cloud solve? Because I actually put an E on it and I Google it and I can't find it. So let's do this. I'm going to pass it over to Paul to kind of give us a brief introduction, and I do believe we have something to play here. So Paul?
Yeah, we actually do have a little bit of a video here. If you want to go ahead and roll that, that'll give you a little bit of an overview of what cloud solve is.
Okay, great. Let me go ahead and get this going. I'm going to turn up the volume here. 1 second. We are not having, one moment here. I'm wondering why we're having sound difficulties. Well, what we're going to do here, since we're having a little bit of a sound difficulties, we're going to go ahead and talk through this video. Why don't we do that? Paul, why don't you give us some of your thoughts on here, and I'll go ahead and pause it.
Sure. Well, actually, if you want, we can move to the next slide here a little bit, maybe a little bit of a easier to understand graphic, but okay. The clouds, the joy of doing things live, right? Cloud Solve is really a lot of times where when folks first start talking about cloud products, they actually come in through the Cloud Solve team. And the Cloud Solve team is really there to either address some of these things themselves or get you in touch with the right people. And it's all about having experts in place to talk to you about your given solution, but also to talk about maybe not just the product you want to sell, but what's the overarching solution. But then you also have the technical piece of that. How are we going to migrate somebody? How are we going to onboard them? What does the customer relationship look like? How do we own that? Today, there's a lot of competition in the marketplace, particularly with cloud. You know, you aren't necessarily going to somebody's site and doing something. You're just doing it all online. So how do you make sure that you add what makes it yours so that you add additional value to the customer and you make it sticky?
All right, so you know, I think we may have this whole idea of sound actually fixed. So I'm going to go ahead and turn up my volume here, and we're going to go ahead and play this because I think this is really a fantastic.
Things are about to get sticky with Synnex, but that's a good thing. The cloud is where businesses are doing business. It's where money is being spent and saved. It's where you can create and sustain lasting relationships with your customers. Synnex's CloudSolve marketplace and community makes it easy for you to become a cloud solution provider and grow by creating stickiness with your customers with best-in-class Microsoft Cloud solutions. Almost 60% of customers say they want a cloud provider that can offer planning, integration, and ongoing management. Synnex CloudSolve provides partners one central location to easily deploy, manage, and build Microsoft Cloud solutions. This means ownership of creating customized solutions, setting the price, owning the billing, services, and your customer relationships. A leader in the cloud space, Synnex's Microsoft CSP gives you flexibility, allowing you to change and grow with your customers. Want to add and remove users or change plans? We make it simple. And with CSP, you can receive licenses right away. Your unique offerings, partnered with Microsoft's innovative cloud products and strategically aligned independent software vendors, gives you the leverage to deepen existing relationships and develop new ones, all while providing the end-to-end support your customers need. So your customers stick around. So come see why Microsoft partners are sticking with Synnex. Partners come first. Everything we do is designed around partner feedback. Earned reputation, known as the most reliable marketplace and portal in the channel. Knowledgeable support, trained, dedicated Microsoft CSP solution sales and support teams. Driving your profitability, Synnex has the lowest CSP pricing in the channel. As one of the fastest growing Microsoft distributors, Synnex is uniquely positioned to help you capture the cloud. Through our Capture the Cloud program, you'll be able to build success through the services and value we provide, so your customers stick with you for years to come.
Man, that was a great finish. I tell you something, that was a very comprehensive overview of what Synnex brings to the table, and they really do a fantastic job. I really think that, kind of just reviewing this once again, when you look at this particular slide, you're looking at the experts, in Microsoft CSP, and I really, really do believe that the folks over at Synnex are really the experts, and they have the migration, onboarding, tech support, and they want you to help, own that customer relationship. I think there's a lot of great value to engaging with Synnex for a myriad of different reasons. And let me ask you this, Paul. When it comes to, I think if you're looking at the right three, pictures that you have up there with simplicity, support, and profitability, what really resonates with you when you're out talking to customers or partners alike?
Well, I would say it's going to be a toss-up between support and profitability. Support is always top of mind for partners. It's, if something goes wrong with this, who can I turn to help get the right answers? Who has the experience that I can trust? And I think that's, like I say, I think that's really top of mind with a lot of partners. Again, profitability is ultimately very important, but if you don't have the support to count on to get there to make sure that you're implementing these solutions in the right way, you may never reach that profitable point that you're looking for.
That's great. Dean Edward had a great quote that you're actually quoting on here, and I'll pass it over to Justin afterwards. And it really says, Synnex offers tremendous value proposition. They're all about people and getting things resolved. That kind of support is worth more than any extra margin you can make. Now, Justin, you manage Dean. What would you say is some of his thoughts? I mean, you've talked to him and around Synnex. Can you give us a little bit more insight into how he does his business with them?
One of the things I love about Dean and several of our partners is that they truly understand the value of partnership And I think that Dean has a great relationship with the entire Synnex team, with the leadership team, with his TPSE that he works with on a regular basis. And I think it comes down to an understanding, because not 100% of the time does everything go right. So, what's great about Dean and his relationship with Synnex is if there's a little hiccup, it's not a personal thing. It's, hey, let's work on doing these things together. And I think because he's been able to do that, he's been able to really gain a lot from the relationship. He's been able to gain a lot in getting additional support to help. Synnex helps him win additional deals because they know everything that he's going to bring to them. They're actually going to close the deal. He's not going to take it around. He's not going to shop it around between everybody else. He's got that trusted relationship with a trusted partner.
That's really good insight. I think Dean is one of the best out there, and I really do value his opinion. All right, let's move into the next portion of it, and that's really the fun part that I think is really questions from our partners. A lot of them out there. We've got a ton of questions already coming in. This is the forum. This is where we want you to ask stuff. Is we want to ask our expert here. Send us the tough questions. We will not ask those. We'll only ask the easy ones. Okay. All right. So the first one really is, how do we transact on ISV offerings such as DocuSign? What would be that? What would you say, Paul? How would somebody transact it? Would they just go into your portal and actually order services through there?
Well, with the various ISVs that are tied very closely to Microsoft, we actually have a team that supports all those solutions. I think we've shown several times that we've got the CloudSolve alias there, and that's really where a lot of people come in to find out about what all those solutions that we carry are, and then they would get kicked over to our ISV team who could have a deeper conversation about what are some considerations. Justin mentioned earlier that there are a couple of verticals that the products like DocuSign are very important to, and our team can help have that conversation to say, here's what's important to them, here's how you may want to approach this, and here's some other things that you may want to include with it.
All right, great, thanks. All right, so let's get into the question that I got some other good ones, but I'll let you get this up. So what types of programs and support does Synnex provide to new partners to ensure a quick turnaround time?
Well, so some of the things that we provide to partners are webinars. We do those on an ongoing basis. We also have marketing events, much like you might go to something like a Microsoft SMB Live. We have events of our own that are all designed around partner enablement. We also have Capture the Cloud, as was briefly talked about in the video there, where as a reseller, you can sign up for that program. It's totally free, and there's a way to get MDF. There's also a bunch of other great benefits that come with that, depending on what tier you fall into.
Great, thank you. So, a lot of partners, and this is why we had this idea of keeping it simple, Superstar, right? A lot of partners saying, gosh, I really want to get into Azure. I really want to start selling it. However, man, it is too complex. There's all sorts of different things in Azure. I've got to learn everything before I can actually do it. So, Paul, help us understand why partners could maybe turn to Synnex to get started.
Sure. Well, one thing that we do, we have an ongoing webinar series that we do every single week. A couple of those are just around helping partners price solutions out. Now, if somebody doesn't join a call with their own solution to price out, we'll actually give you a scenario just so you can see what that looks like. The pricing calculator is not easy to use. And there's some things that you need to know about it in order to use it effectively. We also have our Azure University series, and this is really directed more towards the technical staff. We go over things about how to set up a virtual machine, how to set up backup, single sign-on, Azure Active Directory, and things like that. And those are ongoing. They're free to attend for anybody. Over and above that, depending on what the scenario is, we will also do more personalized virtual and in some cases on-premise training for the sales and technical staff.
Great. Well, I appreciate it. That's a really good explanation of that. So help me understand, how does Synnex stand out in terms of Azure capabilities? Because that kind of coincides with getting started, but how does it stand out in CSP?
Well, and so that kind of goes back to some of the things I was just saying is Synnex has always taken the approach of being very personable. We want to come alongside the reseller, really understand where they are today, and where do they want to go. And that's the personal approach that we take to that. But we also have our CloudSolve portal, which we spend a great deal of time developing so that it's easy for you to use. One thing that I would say that really makes us stand out is we don't put anything on top of Azure. Our CloudSolve portal is there to help you manage your customer contracts, see what your Azure billing looks like on an ongoing basis, order the service and have it set up in a very short period of time so you can start building out those solutions. And then that's where we'll come alongside and say, hey, what are you looking to build out? Let us help you the first couple times you're trying to do this, because there may be some things that just don't stand out as obvious that you should or shouldn't do when you're setting these up.
That's great to hear. Hey, we have a lot of questions in our industry right now with partners that are, I don't know if it's questions, it's more, I don't know if it's complaints, kind of a two-pronged approach, right? There's a lot of frustrations with customer service where it starts and where it ends. So can you help us understand what are the support options? That is on fire, that particular part of the topic. Help us understand Synnex support options.
Well, if we're going to talk about this purely from an Azure standpoint, typically the way a reseller will transact Azure CSP is they take the first call from the customer. And a lot of times what that looks like is the customer comes to the partner and says, hey, I have a problem doing X, Y, Z in Azure. And the partner will then come to Synnex and say, here's the experience that my customer is currently having. How do we improve that for them? And one thing that Synnex has done is we have purchased our own advanced support contract with Microsoft, and we have a way, so if there's a situation that comes up that's not easy to resolve or quick to resolve, we can use our advanced support contract for our Azure CSP customers and help them get resolution much more quickly.
Thank you very much, Paul. Yeah. So here's a question from the audience, and I think Nadine is asking this one, and if we don't know the answer to the question, we're just going to tell you we don't know, but we will help you get an answer. But do we have control over the environment, like when to update SQL and or Office?
That may be a question that's better suited for one of our technical specialists at Synnex. But if we're talking about the SQL that you're setting up in the Azure environment, it really depends. A lot of that could really just depend on what solution you're running up there. And I assume really this question goes more to, we set somebody up in Azure running SQL Server 2014 and we want to move them to 2016. I think it'd really beg a question with our technical staff, say, here's what we're doing today. Here's why we think this may be important. Do you think it's a good idea or not? Azure is a very fluid product, and there are good reasons at certain times to do things, and maybe there's another time where you should wait.
Great. Here's another good one. Actually, this is really top of mind. Do you have cost calculators like Azure's that will help to compare Azure to other similar cloud offerings? We've had this request multiple times. How would you address that?
Well, everything we do is in the Azure pricing calculator because that's the most accurate way to get an estimate for the solution that you're looking to put forth. What I would say is if you look at tools like the Health Check for Azure from BitTitan, that will actually examine the environment for a couple weeks and will give you pricing options between AWS and Azure.
Chairman, let me add to that.
Yeah.
Just this morning, there was an internal notice that went out, and we'll be making this official to all the partners. But the Azure Health Check from BitTitan is going to be at no cost for our partners for the rest of the fiscal year. Wow. So if you have an opportunity that you want to run a cost comparison like this, let us know. It's just an easy form we have to fill out, and we can get you those licenses at no cost.
Okay, let's repeat that one more time. This is really necessary for everyone to see. Justin, just one more time, if you don't mind.
Yep. So if you have a customer and so just to kind of go over the Azure Health Check, you install an appliance on an on-premises system, and you let it run for 12 days. It's 12 days, right, Paul? 12 or 14 days.
Yep.
And then you get a report back, and it says if this exact environment we're running in Azure would cost this amount. If they also have a comparison where you could look to see what it would look like with AWS, as well as it then takes the next step and says, well, if you right size this environment and you virtualize this machine and this machine, you can actually reduce the amount of money that would cost to run in Azure by 30 to 50% is what we see on average. But this tool did cost partners money, but starting today, we now have some extra funding from our cloud and enterprise group to where we can provide the licenses to you at no cost.
It's awesome news.
That's incredible news. Okay, so this is the one more from the partners here. This one's going to be a little complicated. So once again, if we don't know the answer, we're going to say we don't know, but we'll get you the answer, okay? So it says, thanks, Sherman, long-time watcher, first-time questioner, which is good. I wonder who that is. You didn't put your name on here, so you got to let me know. So once a partner is with Synnex and they ingest an existing Azure deployment for a new customer, do they do this by allowing a simple DPOA reassignment to the Synnex registered, to have them registered to us as a partner? How would that work? Does anyone know on the panel?
Well, I have to think that, look at the question again, let me know, are we talking about an existing tenant that we're moving into CSP, or we're talking about a new tenant?
So once a partner with Synnex, do you ingest an existing Azure deployment for a new class? So I guess they're taking over for somebody, right?
Right.
For another Azure deployment, and they're trying to figure out, where or what to do.
Well, when it comes to setting up an Azure tenant in CSP, through our backend systems, you're automatically going to be listed as the partner of record on that whenever you set up an Azure tenant. When we talk about moving people to Azure CSP, there's a couple different scenarios. If we're moving from one CSP to another, there's a fairly new simplified process that's still somewhat manual. But if we're talking about moving somebody from an EA environment, or if you're open or pay-as-you-go direct with Microsoft, then you're actually setting up a new subscription in Azure. And again, these are not questions that are the first time we're hearing them. Partners are asking this every day because they're running into customers that may have set up an Azure tenant. You remember when Office 365 came out, a partner would go out and they'd get a customer and they'd say, you know what, they've already got an Office 365 tenant. That's happening today with Azure. And the process isn't as smooth to move them from one subscription type to another as it is in Office 365. Azure's still pretty bleeding edge. So it really just depends on the scenario. I hate to keep saying that. That's just the reality of it, though, today.
Yeah, I think that's just the reality of it. We're new and we're kind of, going into uncharted, territories, right? So I think that's, I really appreciate that. All right, so we're just going to run through the last few that we actually have on our docket here, and then we'll get to a couple of those. Derek, I know you did ask one. What if I don't want to manage my customer subscriptions and want to offer them a portal to manage? What are your thoughts on that one, Paul?
Well, when it comes to Azure, what I will tell you is Azure is not a spectator sport. You have to be involved as a partner. And the really good thing about being involved as a partner is that's where you inject your value. And that's where spending time with the customer allows you to identify other sales opportunities. We've talked about several different ISVs that play really well with Microsoft today. If you're not managing your customer on a day-to-day basis, there may be some opportunities you miss. Now, for Azure, today, a partner is going to be managing that environment themselves and should be charging some kind of ongoing management cost to do so. If we talk about Office 365, we have built functionality into our CloudSolve portal that would allow you to assign some responsibility to your customer in terms of adding or reducing users. This is one area around Synnex where we take a lot of feedback from partners who tell us, here are some things we would like to have the capability to do. So in the future, those are things that you may see that we have available to you. Today, Azure environments are going to be very closely managed by the customer.
Great, thank you. And then last question here, or we have two more. How exactly, and this is from Derek Gabriel in Hawaii, we love having him on. How exactly do we sign up for those Azure assessment licenses? Is that through Synnex?
Yeah, so Derek, just send me an email. Happy to guide you through the process. We just got notice of it this morning, so I can't tell you exactly. It's probably going to be through Disty, but send me an email and I'll get you the exact process. But glad to hear you're already on board.
That's awesome.
All right, and then Paul, let's discuss this. Is the security aspect of infrastructure as a service? I know we have tons of customers out there that are like, oh, it's still not secure. I'm unsure. Where's my data going to be? I think I like to have it in my own little corner. Help us understand the security aspect of Azure.
Sure. Well, and you said a key word there. I like to have it in my own little corner, and that's exactly where some people have it, is in their own little corner. The only form of security around their server is a lock on the door that they probably lost the key to. And it's partly I'm kind of making fun, but at the same time, I actually heard about this exact scenario the other day. And Microsoft, if you go to the azure.microsoft.com website, there's a lot of great information on that website. And some of the things that you'll find is what Microsoft does to provide security around their data centers that Azure is hosted in today. I would argue that you're probably going to have a very large enterprise customer before you get close to equaling that kind of security. It's almost today it's almost a non-starter conversation once you see the type of security that people like Microsoft are putting around their data centers. It's not even close.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, let's get into this, the review of Synnex program. So I'm going to let you actually drive this moving forward.
Awesome. So what you're looking at here on the slide is our Microsoft Azure CSP and Office 365 solutions. I mentioned earlier that we have the ongoing webinars that we do every week. We do a couple pricing webinars. We do an intro to Azure every week, and these are done by myself and Joe Gallo, who is our Azure technical specialist, our lead Azure technical specialist on the team. And then we also have, for our Office 365 program, our on-demand tutorial, and these are actually hot links in the presentation. I'm not sure if you will be able to download this presentation or get access to it, but you can see there's an email address there, microsoftcsp@synnex.com, or you can always email cloudsolve@synnex.com and get somebody on the phone to find out a little bit more about what you can do, what resources are available to help get you started. The next slide, which
it's coming up.
You may, okay.
There you go.
All right. Did we skip too many there by chance?
No, that's the next one. Capture the cloud.
All right. So the Capture the Cloud program, I mentioned a little bit about this earlier. This is a free program for you to sign up for, and depending upon where you fall in the mix of things, really determines what kind of benefits you get. At a very minimum level, you get access to some of the training that we're doing today. We also notify you of some of the events that we have taken place that are for Synnex only partners in the Capture the Cloud program. And one of my really favorite ones that's probably underutilized is our marketing development funds. It's even at our very entry-level tier, which means you really haven't even probably started your Azure or your Office 365 Synnex CSP practice with Synnex. You get access to marketing development funds. This is a great way as a partner for you to go out, work with your local chamber of commerce, work with the community connections through Microsoft to do some things in your community and get your name out there. And again, this is a free program that you can sign up for just by going to synnex.com/cloudsolve without an E, as you pointed out earlier, and we will get you signed up.
All right, so for everyone, this deck is actually uploaded to aka.ms/PLG power, so you'll be able to get that, no problem. Get all the links to go ahead and click through. So we always talk about promotions. There's a lot of promotions out there. Paul, help me understand why Synnex, or what are the exclusive Synnex promotions that are helping partners really accelerate their business?
Sure. So as you'll see here on this next slide, we've got the cash in promotion with CSP. And basically, this is a way to get some additional money around your opportunities, whether you're doing Azure CSP or Office 365 CSP. And then also, I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, If you've got a scenario where you have a customer in Azure today and they're not in Azure CSP and you want to know what would it look like to move them into CSP, we would like to have that conversation with you to talk about what resources are available to you, what you may need to consider, and what things may or may not move. And then the other thing that I'll mention, we are really happy to announce is that with our billings that started this month in March, we have increased our reseller discount on Azure from 9% to 12%, and there's no current end date for that. So 12% discount on Azure CSP opportunity, sales to chat, revenue to chat each month. And then for the cash in promotion, that ends this month. We started tracking sales, I believe it was from January 3rd, ends at the end of this month.
Wait, Sherman.
Yes.
Hold the show. Okay. So you've increased the margins on Azure from 9 to 12.
Yeah.
If a partner is a managed partner, they get an additional 8, so that would make 20% margin.
Correct.
You're paying a $50 spiff for every 250, so that's an additional 20%. And then there's a cloud power up, which is another 20% that runs from February 1st. So let me do this math. 12, 8, that's 20, plus 20 is 40 plus 20. So 60% margin on Azure if they're selling through. Oh, man.
Yep. And this is another reason why you want to be in that Capture the Cloud community, because you will know about these things as they happen.
So wait, 60% margin if you're selling through Synnex.
It's a great time to get into Azure CSP, isn't it?
Sherman, we might need to be a partner again.
Yeah. Eugene?
We'll sign you up.
All right. No, that is fantastic. I love it. All right. Let's move into the next one, which is package of the week. And the beauty of this one too is really, a lot of times I come up with these packages, but Paul and I we're doing our pre-production meetings, and Paul has some great things to really bring up here. And I just want to do the first one. Really is, he brought up this is really how to prepare your customer for the next 5 years. And I think with that, Paul, I'll let you kind of get into it and kind of your thoughts on the package of the week.
Sure, really. Yeah. So what started this line of thinking is how do you before Azure and before Office 365, what did the conversation with the customer look like? You had to prepare for what the next 5 years, or it maybe is even longer, depending on what their hardware refresh cycle is. But what is this next 5-year period of time going to look like for you? Where are you going to go? Are you up, increasing in size? Are you downsizing? When we make these hardware solutions today, we need to make sure that they're future-proof for the next 5 years. And the conversation today is much different because it's a different design philosophy. And this is really what we spend a lot of time talking to partners about when we talk about Azure implementations. But for the package of the week, we've got the venerable E3 plan there. When you are putting customers into Office 365, a lot of times the conversation starts with, all right, my customer wants to go in there and they just want email in the cloud. And we start having a conversation and we start digging a little bit deeper, and you find out that E3 package is really the sweet spot because there's a ton of value in that package with the Office Pro Plus that you get, plus all the SharePoint and the OneDrive capabilities that come along with that. And one thing that you may be thinking as a partner is you may say, well, that's great. I think it sounds great, and I agree with everything you say, but this customer isn't ready to go there. Well, we have one of the ISVs that we partner with is Team Fusion, and these guys have a ton of content available around Office 365 for your customer to get access to learn how to do certain things. And there's certainly other reasons why you want to use Team Fusion, but it's not just self-help. It's I can get a report and see what is my customer's Salesforce or workforce, what are they asking questions about? And your customer can see that too if they need to see what are the people in the office trying to do with these solutions. The great thing for the partners, that can help identify some other opportunity. It can also take some of those little, knick-knack emails out of your way that says, hey, how do we do X, Y, Z? And Team Fusion makes it really easy to integrate so that your customers don't have to think really hard about how do we figure out how to do something in Office 365. And then we've spoken, I think, a couple times today about BitTitan and their health check for Azure and how it's going to be easily accessible for you from a price point standpoint. Justin mentioned that this tool runs for about 2 weeks in the environment. Now that may sound like a long time to you, and you can actually let it run longer. The whole idea is you're trying to collect data points. It's just like anything else, the old garbage in, garbage out. If you get good data, then the recommendations from the tool are going to be much closer, much more a likely scenario. And they give you two scenarios. They say, here's what a lift and shift would cost, like if we just wanted to take the same thing that we're doing today on premise and put that in the cloud. And then it also gives you a right sizing. And that right sizing is what I'm talking about when I say there's a different design philosophy when we think about building out these solutions for the next 5 years. And one that comes up frequently, you see I've got labeled out here on the screen, is the RDS environment. Had a conversation with somebody just the other day that said, hey, I've got a really dynamic environment where my customer has anywhere between 3 and 100 users, and here's what they want to do. Well, the nice thing is about Azure, you don't have to go out and build out all these servers that can handle 100 people for maybe the, 10 or 15 days out of the month that you've actually got that much workload. You can do these things called availability sets. And this is where we can, we talk about these in our webinars, but this is also where we can help you as a partner in a one-off scenario, say, here's how you do this. And the great thing about those availability sets is it reduces the cost. There's also the opportunity for you to throw in your management fees for the servers. Just because it's in Azure doesn't mean that goes away. We can talk to you about what that looks like, and then you're also going to have your storage accounts. You still got to have that to store all your information as well as your backup. And then there's the disaster recovery monthly assessments that you can do as well. So don't think of Azure as a product. Think of it as a piece of the solution. And if you haven't built out an MSP practice yet, this is a great way to get into doing that type of business. And we'd love to have the conversation with you about how to do that.
I think that's brilliant. Paul, that's absolutely brilliant what you're talking about. With Azure, and you're absolutely right. We just had this offsite. We're talking about a lot of people are trying to sell Azure by itself, Azure, and really the way to really bring it to market is really through a package solution that solves a problem, maybe for a specific vertical market, where you're not talking about price, because that's what we really want to get away from. We want to get away from any type of pricing. We want to get into a solution that you're going to make a big margin off of, right? You're going to make 42%, 52%, 62%. So little differences in some of the pricing that you may or may not do gets factored in, right? And so instead of making your 62%, now maybe you're making 57% because you made a small mistake on how to calculate something, inside of it. But if you're putting together a package, now that's where the money really is. So Paul, brilliant ideas. I really appreciate you providing these types of input here. All right, so let's get into our call of action, which is actually quite important here. So what we want you to do, first of all, is take our advice at the beginning of the show and just do it, okay? Keep it simple, superstars, just do it. Transform your business model to the cloud. Remember, we want to get away from doing a business that's only regionally situated. We want to be able to have a business that we can provide a package solution locally, regionally, statewide, and nationwide. And we just saw a beautiful example of a package that you could put together. You want to choose the right path within the world of cloud. Look to find the big margins. How are you going to put it together? If you're finding that selling Office 365 E3 edition is not bringing you enough margin, well, why don't you put it together with something else that's going to help you build a large revenue stream, but build the right path. Don't sell stuff that's not going to, give you a pretty good margin. Now, if you are already in the cloud, if you're in Office 365 and you have tons of clients that are there, that's great because they're already used to the cloud. Bringing up examples such as Azure, right? Such as the disaster recovery, such as hosting their website in the cloud, or backup or storage or infrastructure as a service should not be hard for you. And remember, it's just like managing your own server at someone's office, but now we're just managing it up in the cloud, okay? And you can get some pretty great margins. Remember, 60% margin right now with Synnex. Unbelievable. And lastly, if you need to email them directly, Synnex at cloudsolve with no E at synnex.com. Okay, so let me just summarize this really quickly for everyone who is here. You know, Synnex puts partners first, and they help simplify cloud selling for our partners. We understand that. We went over that. Why do they do this? They have these great programs utilizing Cloud Solve and utilizing all these different ideas. They are fantastic to work with. Next. Well, I went backwards. I think I need to repeat that one. Synnex has exclusive partner promos that help drive big revenue. That's also really important. You know, Synnex is known as the most reliable in terms of customer support and marketplace functionality. That's another great one, right? Marketplace and functionality. And then lastly, let's get back to the contact information. We are about to conduct the raffle off here. Synnex is going to give away a $500 prize here. But Paul, do you have any last thoughts that you want to provide to the group?
Sure. Just a couple quick things. Azure is a very deep product. There's a lot to consider. But now is a great time to get into selling Azure because, you know, we talked about some things that Synnex does today, but I'm also very familiar with the other things that Microsoft has in the market around Azure, like the Azure Mentor Program, Azure Everywhere for SMB to help accelerate some of those sales that you have out there. And I would love to have those conversations with you about how to take advantage of some of those programs so that we all get to a place where we're all making a lot of money. Because at the end of the day, we all want to retire someday, and Azure can really help us get there.
Justin, do you have any final thoughts for the group?
I'm just blown away by the opportunities that are in market right now. I mean, truly, I mean, to think about, you know, potentially making up to 60% with Azure, Office 365, Dynamics 365, these things are just incredible opportunities. We have some major things coming out with EMS and even some additional things coming with Azure. So just stay tuned, but I think the key is just go sell. It's an awesome time to be a partner right now.
All right, so let's do the raffle here. Please, Paul, pick a number between 1 and 152.
1 and 152. All right, let's go with 73.
There you go.
73 is Oscar Rodriguez. Congratulations.
Oh, congratulations.
Oscar, please reach out to Paul, MA at Synnex.com, and they'll take care of you. We were happy that you joined. Thank you very much. Every week we are going to be doing the same thing. We have another special guest next week that's going to be awesome, is bringing the same type of giveaway. So Oscar, you need to respond and send Paul an email, and we'll go from there. All right, everyone, thank you so much. I know we ran a few minutes over. We look forward to seeing you next week. Same bat time, same bat place. So for the partner, by the partner, and for America, thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.